Howdy, howdy, baseball world. We are back, Neil, DAWG, with Seth, Bam Bam Clark, Seth Dog. How are you?
Good. As you started to say that again, that HH Howdy Hi. Love the old school reference, but
did that exactly for you this time. This time I did it knowingly. There are other things that kind of make you think, Don and Mike, but this time it was on purpose.
Love the HH Howdy Hi. And
thanks to B.O.B. for listening. Oh, gotta leave that cryptic. I prefer. I mean, not that it's beyond rated PG, but it's just gross.
You can't talk about balloon knots. I'm sorry.
Oh, way off track. Hey, for the second time, I did this before, and you ended up not doing the show. I have an East Bay Blaze jersey on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of appropriate because in 1990, first time I ever wore this jersey, first time you and I ever became teammates together, playing on a great team that should have won a championship before Jerry Windell's team cheated us.
Cheated us. A long time ago, right? Hey,
cheated us.
Hey, all those highs partials that they had on that team that they employed to beat us down. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying,
Yeah. Whenever high partials beat totals, you know what the reason is. Sorry, Jerry. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Jerry Windell. How's it going?
It's going just great, Neil and Seth. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
He doesn't sound like he's very happy so far, Neil Dog.
I know, right? It wasn't even planned. It's never planned when we offend our guests.
Yeah, right. It was a joke. We kid because we can.
Yeah, right. The only cheating that went on is you pitched better than our pitcher. But that was
and that's probably one of the few games where we actually had probably two legally blind pitchers participating.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that. I'll dive into what you're doing here shortly. But you say that you're the only. I'm not arguing it. You say you're the only legally blind pitcher to have won a championship. I thought Ray Cerna, had a little bit of a vision loss.
He was visually impaired. He wasn't legally blind.
So you got split hairs to give yourself credit.
There's a big difference between the way I see and the way Cerna sees. For instance, yes, I know there's people out there who have issues with the fact that I can drive with bioptics, but Cerna just drove with just regular glasses. I mean, he didn't even have, bioptic correction or anything like that to see. And in order to drive with just regular glasses, you have to see better than 20/70. So,
Are bioptics just educating me a little bit? Is that just the real thicker glasses, or is that where you got the telescope coming off the lens?
It's telescopes.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that what you wear when you drive?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You look like a spaceman driving around your car around the
neighborhood. I'm sure I get some looks from other drivers when they see me out there. So
I'm sure I'm totally blind and I'm making fun of you. I don't even know what I've been blind over 40 years. I don't even know what normal looks like anymore, and I'm making fun of you. So
well, don't worry, Neil. You don't look normal.
Excellent. Well, Jerry, we had you on here with your team just not too long ago, and for us to race along and bring you back on, you reached out, said you've got an announcement that you are going to make, and you would like to make it on the show.
Hey, is Jerry Windell going to the Thunder?
That is the move that is going to change the landscape of the 2022 season. Jerry Windell's playing shortstop for the Indy Thunder.
Well, I was with the Thunder on a couple different occasions, and last time was a couple years ago, and yeah, you never quite know what's going to happen in the landscape of beat baseball.
Hey, Daddy, scooping something? Did I let something out of the bag?
But all I can say is, if I go to the Thunder, I will not be a difference maker.
And you will not be playing shortstop.
No. I will not be taking Eric Rodriguez's place.
Real quick, on the beat ball front before you make your announcement, like the Indy Extreme, like was that a one and done thing? Is there going to be another Indy Extreme?
If there is an Indy Extreme, we'll only play probably in a regional tournament. It's just simply because of scheduling and everything. Our son, our pitcher is James Michael's son, Jesse, and Jesse's a freshman in college, and so he wouldn't be available to us until sometime in May. And then after that point, he's a 18, 19-year-old kid. And, we certainly wouldn't ask him to lock up his whole summer.
Why? Because no 18 or 19-year-old has ever fell in love with the game, and I mean, it seems like he's a dedicated beat ball guy. I remember James talking about him loving the game.
Oh, he does. He does, and he's a good kid, and he's got some good friends who help out with the team. But it was originally.
What I think Neil is saying to you, Jerry, is it sounds like you're blaming it on him.
We won't ask him. We can't ask a season out of an 18 or 19-year-old.
Well, we're
just talking about free child labor. James can just tell him to do it.
He's barely got free will of his own.
Well, we were quite an elderly team.
Yeah.
Second oldest team there, and we ended up finishing sixth, and that was with a lot of gray hairs on our team, and we did, we were very happy with the way we played.
Yeah, you should.
And where we placed, and to be honest, unless we were to pick up a few more players, I don't think that we could really honestly try to do that again with just 7 or so players having to play in 90 to 100 degree temperature.
No, that's fair.
And it's going to be just as bad next summer.
It'll be worse going to Texas. That's Texas in August is just one step above hell.
So
as far as the heat.
So I will never say never that the Extreme wouldn't appear in a World Series again, but I would say that it's probably unlikely. It was originally a one and done. And we'll just see where things go.
That's fair. And the only reason I asked is because, as you mentioned, you guys finished sixth. I mean, that you guys had an impressive run, and you have a solid young pitcher, something that like half our teams would love to have, probably. So,
yeah, but
that's why
having a solid young pitcher and then having 6 guys who can actually get 100 foot, run 100 feet to base.
You need to get him a good young team.
Exactly.
Fair enough. So, Jerry, then tell our audience, what is your big announcement?
Well, my big announcement is I was asked by several people and was nominated to run for NBBA president next summer, and I accepted the nomination, and I have the time to spend on this league, as with the fact that I retired a couple years ago. So I'd like to see what I could help do for the league.
Fair enough. Go
Who
ahead, sir.
nominated? What was the nomination? Or give us a look into the behind the scenes of the. I just was surprised. Who nominated you? You guys, or just you guys got together and talked about this, or is this something you've been thinking about for a while, or what's up?
Oh, I've thought about it for a while, and actually, I was going to run back the year that Blake was elected president,
2017.
but I took my name out because at that point in time I was just getting married. I was planning my retirement from work and had several things going on in my personal life at that time that I felt the only time I really had to spend was time that I donated to the team when I was with the Edge, uh, and so I decided not to run at that point.
Let me ask
But
you.
answering Seth's question, I had several people approach me as far as running for president. Um people that I have a lot of trust and faith in, and uh, they thought it would be a good thing for the league. And uh,
Can I make one guess at one of those people? I mean,
sure,
I know who nominated you, so I'm not going to guess that person, obviously. I'm going to I'd be willing to bet money that Janet Leonard was one of those people.
Janet and I talk,
Ooh, I'm wrong. She don't
but
want you?
but
Oh, I'm kidding.
I know that she supports me, but she wasn't one of the people who came up to me and asked me to take it into consideration.
Well, I think it's important to note that it was Blake Boudreau who nominated you, who is our current president. So that instantly.
No, it wasn't Blake.
Oh, you told me on the phone it was. That's the only reason I said it was. You told me when you first called me that Blake nominated.
Well,
That's the only reason I said it. So
Blake was one who was going to nominate me, but I don't believe Blake was the person who actually did nominate me.
okay.
So
All right.
so
well, either way, my point to that, and I guess if you say he was going to, assume he didn't change his mind because he's now going to run. I was going to point out that obviously the current president is not planning on running again.
that's correct, and
So.
and how how to make this not sound political. Blake is a friend. If Blake would have decided to run again for president, I probably wouldn't have ran. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean I agree with everything that Blake's done over his term as president. I believe that he's done a lot of good things as president. So I probably wouldn't have ran against him. But since he's not, and I was asked, I decided to. And it's not that I believe Blake could do a better job than I possibly could at president. It's just like I said, I didn't have anything against a lot of the things that's happened over the last 3 years or so, 4 years.
That makes one of us in this conversation.
Yes,
I could say that.
I know you're the president of it. I know you're the president of his fan club.
I don't think, to be fair, I don't think Blake was the worst president ever. I think he had good ideals, and I think I think there are a lot. I could give him credit on enough things that I think he had a good approach at. I'm not at all a fan of his. I feel like he likes to lead with more of a dictatorship, and I don't feel at all like he treats all the members equally. And frankly, that's something I would want out of you, myself, or anybody else who ever is a leader of this league, is to care about every member in the league, to give all the members an opportunity. And I feel like he lacked in that area
Yeah.
severely. And I feel comfortable saying it because I don't think I'm alone. Like, there's been a lot of complaints along those lines during his tenure, but this isn't about him.
Right.
No, no, but
You're not an extension of Blake or whatever.
Yeah. And I
They're
don't.
just saying that you just would have been more deferential if he was running, but you're not saying you're like at the next his third term or anything like
no,
that.
no,
Right.
absolutely. And I think you two have known me for a long time, over 30 years. And I don't think you've ever known me to be anybody but myself. Uh, I'm not always right. Uh, if you ask my daughter, she'll tell you that I'll tell you I'm always right. But uh, I'm not always right about things. But I certainly give people the latitude to do things on their own. And but with that said, that makes them also accountable for what they do. Uh, I retired as a manager in information technology from the federal government. I had a staff of over 20 people who reported to me, and my my biggest strength, I believe, was that I let my people do their job. I did not sit there and micromanage, the assignments that they had, because I trusted that, if I felt good enough to give them that responsibility, or if they volunteered for that responsibility, then they would be capable of carrying it out. And it came down to people. People needed to be responsible for their job, and I never was one that would try to take credit for the work that they did, and I always made sure that the credit was given to those who did the job. So, I see that as a strength of mine.
So, bridging on from that, and turning it into becoming the president of the National Beat Baseball Association. Like, what's your kind of your platform? What are the things that are important for you going forward? What are like some changes you'd like to see? Any of that stuff? Like, what's your approach going into running for the president?
Well, one thing that I like you said, you guys have been around with many of the presidents that we've had over the years. People like Jim Mastro and Michael Garrett and Dan Green and Blake now and Joe Wood.
Can't leave out Doc. Come on.
Doc Bradley, and
David Smoker, since you
and Dave Smoker.
Davey Smoke. Davey Smoke. Shout out to Dave and his brother. His brother just I never knew this before, but his brother Joe took a pretty bad injury, I guess, during the World Series, and he just had to have surgery. And I don't even know what the injury was, but shout out to all the Smokas. I hope Joe's healing up well.
But one of the things that I believe has been a weakness of the organization over the years is, we really haven't been proactive as far as getting out and trying to make change in our organization, as far as reaching out to whether it's other organizations that represent the blind and the visually impaired, or even reaching out to industry in itself to to find other people who can help us out.
Like partnerships with other organizations for the blind?
Absolutely. I mean, I can go back to, I was one of the original members of USABA in 1976. And one of the things that, you got to give USABA credit for is they've done a lot better job at approaching the public, getting support from not just the visually impaired, but from corporations, from other athletic associations and such. And
Right.
and I believe, one of the things I feel strong about, and I know that we've reached out to some of these organizations before in the past, but there's other sports for the visually impaired or other handicapped sports that have support from our major league sports communities, such as, the National Hockey League for blind hockey, the NBA for wheelchair basketball.
We can't do it here, and honestly, I've been scared to even say it out loud to anybody, but I have a very drastic idea for our league to try to change that would change that, but it would have to be its own show.
Right. Well,
it would not be well received by a lot, but I do believe it might be the only answer for Major League Baseball recognizing us more. But go back to what.
Hold on, I just want to. So I hear that, but to what end? Right? We want to reach out to Major League Baseball. We want to reach out to corporations. For what end? What is you're going to reach out to these people to bring what to the sport? What are the concrete things that you want then that those connections to transform into on the field or at the World Series or in how we do what we're doing?
It's basically twofold. Number one, you reach out to these organizations and they can certainly help publicize the fact, publicize your sport, and hopefully help get other players as well as volunteers involved. And secondly, absolutely, I would be interested in financial aid as well. Look at the NBBA. At least since I became involved in 1982, I've been around. This will be my 41st year involved in the game. Over those 41 years, we really have only had a couple corporate sponsors. You go back to the early 80s and mid 80s when the World Series was held a lot up in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. General Mills and Wheaties was a corporate sponsor. I believe one of the reasons why they no longer were a corporate sponsor is that they would have liked to have seen us, have our World Series there on a regular basis, and we chose not to do that. Which I certainly understand why we chose not to lock ourselves down into one city. Then over the last few years, we've had like Jersey Mike's as a sponsor, through a connection that that has brought us some money, and that's certainly a helping hand, and I wouldn't be reaching out to these people asking them to throw to throw money at us. I would want these people to actually be involved, hopefully in leadership. More so honorary leadership positions, because these people are people who have can reach deep into society and who have other people who could help support our cause. But and I'm not just simply looking at Major League Baseball. There's no reason why we shouldn't reach out with corporate sponsorship in companies that deals with equipment, companies that deals with uniforms. I mean, we as individual teams have always had to our own uniforms, our own bats, our own batting gloves and stuff like that. And if we could reach out to some of those suppliers and whether it's on a donation level or a reduced price level, certainly help bring down the cost of what teams have to spend out of their own pockets.
Right. So let me jump in because I feel like this area covers two different things. Like the one area is like when we're talking about reaching out to somebody like Major League Baseball, that's for some kind of corporate sponsorship support. That would be the main goal there. And the NBA, National Basketball Association, does support wheelchair basketball. There's a sponsorship there. So that kind of sponsorship would be huge. The equipment would be huge. All that stuff is any kind of corporate sponsorship would be great. But as you mentioned, it's something the league has struggled to ever really secure on any large scale throughout the 47 years of its existence. Now, the other side of that you're talking about, you brought up Usaba, and for anybody who doesn't know, that's the United States Association of Blind Athletes, and that's a group that oversees like all of the Paralympic events. No sport is played at the Paralympics that no United States team plays at the Paralympics without going through Usaba. So it's a huge organization. It's bigger than the NBBA, and going back to the early 90s is where I can remember. There's always been a lot of conversation, Jerry, about the NBBA getting involved with Usaba, and we've never been able to iron out a relationship of any kind. So you mentioned you were involved with Usaba back in the 70s. You've been involved in beat baseball all this time. I know you've been close enough to know what's going on with Usaba since then. So what can you do differently? What can the league do differently to finally push that cart over the mountain?
Well, what the league needs to understand is that, if we were to become more involved with Usaba, is that Usaba, it wouldn't be looking to take over our organization. That was always one of the big concerns back in the 80s and 90s, was that, if we get involved with USABA, then we're going to lose our own individuality. And I don't believe that's the case at all. I mean, USABA is
it's a governing body.
It's the governing body for sports of the visually impaired, for the USOPC, but it's just a representation, and yes, I mean, there's sports like goalball and track and field and swimming, that has been, that's been ran through USABA. That's because USABA was the original body that got the United States involved with, the International Paralympics back in starting in 1976.
But bringing it back to here, like what will your approach be to convince the NBBA that it's something that can be done?
I've been one who's been involved with the whole conversation on whether or not we should be a Paralympic sport or not. Uh, Paralympic sport, has a whole lot more involved with it than just simply being a member of USABA.
Oh,
I mean, we have other sports that USABA sponsors, such as wrestling and such, that aren't part of international competition in the Paralympics, and that's simply because there's not enough member countries of the USOPC who participates in those sports.
yeah,
But
something
it could,
just on it real quick, just on that note, so people know, it's more than just wanting a sport to be a Paralympic sport. To be involved in the Olympics, a sport has to be played on 4 different continents in 16 different countries. And we aren't anywhere close to that, that we know
of. There is one exception, and that is if a country is the one who's hosting the Paralympics, then they can have a certain number of sports that don't meet those requirements. So,
but is it official or is it more exhibition sport? Because I know they have like what they call exhibition sports during the Olympics.
well, you can take a look at, baseball and softball were included in this summer's Olympics. Those are 2 sports that have been on and off
Right.
the Olympic docket over the last 20 to 30 years. And usually they're only on the docket when there's countries that are hosting that actually participate in those sports. So, but
the Olympic stuff, that's all like a totally separate conversation.
Yeah, true,
We're
true.
kind of getting off track. Bringing it back to like, how can we bridge the gap between USABA? Like, what will be your approach be to bridge that gap?
Well, a couple years ago, 2019, NBBA did participate. There was a international Goldball championship that were held in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we worked with Mark Lucas, who was the executive director of USABA at the time, to present to IBSA, International Blind Sports Association. We had very good meetings. There was a lot of exchange between the members of the IBSA board and us, and those conversations went really well. Unfortunately, though, we came around to 2020, and what happened? The pandemic. Basically has put things on the back burner, and that's certainly something I would be reaching back out to if I were president, to get back with the new executive director of USABA, as well as reach out to the IBSA board members who were who seemed very willing to listen when we met with them a couple of years ago.
Well, I said, how do we become an affiliate of USABA and still control our own or have our own autonomy? To me, the 2 things don't seem compatible. We have two different things going on. USABA is a very competition-based organization, right? That's why they filter everything for the Olympics and all this and that. Beepball is kind of a half and half sport, right?
Explain that half and half. You mean sided and blind?
It's half competitive and it's half recreational.
Okay.
Right. It's not. We talk about all the families and all this and that are part of beepball and the fabric of beepball and it's all in one family. That kind of falls away when we are purely a competition-based sport focused on international competition. What again, I am wondering is, how does the NBBA stay the NBBA once it folds into USABA? You have this vision of bringing us into USABA. How though do we keep who we are within their umbrella?
Well, I think all we have to do is to take a look at the correlation of of the of the sports that the able-bodied sports. USA basketball still rules basketball for the United States. It's a member it's a member of the USOPC. USA Gymnastics, USA Track and Field. Those are all independent sports organizations that roll up to the USOPC, and I don't see any reason why the NBBA couldn't maintain its own anonymity with governing its own sport in relation to USABA. In the conversations, that I've had with, past people from USABA and management, it's, they never wanted to take over our organization, and they never tried. And like I said, we as an organization, as far as, what I know, we just simply didn't want to have that possibility of them doing it. So therefore we just simply always stayed in our own stream. And I think that's cost us over the years.
Is there outside of, beat baseball will never be a Paralympic sport without the NBBA joining, or without, I guess, Usaba somehow taking on beat ball, whether it's the NBBA or just doing it independently. If, with that in mind, we've already acknowledged that it's not being played widely enough to even be a Paralympic sport right now. Is there a gain for the NBBA to join with Usaba outside of like just the Paralympic side of it? What are the other gains?
Absolutely. I mean, whether if we were to become involved with USABA and the USOPC, there's other sports that other competitions other than the Paralympics, and being affiliated with those two organizations could certainly help us develop the sport in the rest of the world, as far as helping outreach with countries in Europe, South America, Asia. So yeah, I mean, it would certainly be a good place for us for outreach.
All right.
And I transitioning off that, because I'm also a big believer. So again, we have the outreach thing, but on one level there is, you have to deal with the corporations, you have to deal with Usaba, but you also then have to, as president, have a vision for like where you want to take our individual game, like our on the field product, our World Series sites, outside of the, sorry, my birds are flying. They rule the house. Outside of that, like as it relates to the NBBA product, the on-field product, what sort of vision do you have for that? What sort of changes do you want to bring? What sort of things that we already have in place do you want to strengthen? What for our game? What is your vision as well as a president?
Well, as far as there's been some teams that has done a really good job, that's done really good jobs over the years as far as publicizing our game. The Indy Thunder, they've done a good job locally as far as the regional sports television.
Austin Blackhawks deserve a lot
Austin
of credit
Blackhawks, the Boston Renegades.
Oh yeah.
And so I certainly think that we need to rely on the people who's done a good job with those particular teams, And, unfortunately, this last year, the televising of our championship game fell through, not to any effort that was made by the people who was working on it. So those are things that we can build on as far as helping to make the public more aware of our sport. Um, but we also need to reach out, like I was saying earlier, to those other organizations who deal with the visually impaired. Just to make sure that we're reaching out to all the visually impaired people that we can. To make them aware that we do have this game. It's a perfect opportunity for you to become involved physically in an activity. There's other activities that we as visually impaired participate in, but I don't think we do a really good job at making people aware, of whether it's with the National Federation for the Blind, which we have several people who are big people in that organization, or American Council for the Blind, whoever. But we just simply need to reach out to those organizations and try to get more people who are visually impaired involved in the game.
Fair enough. I actually like the other sports that are starting to build up, blind hockey and blind soccer. Like I think would be a good two-way street to have both our players, the NBBA players, learning more about the other team sports that are starting to become available to them, and those players to ours. Even though there are a lot of players that, like I know Nick Silver, is done played the blind hockey. We got a lot of players that are doing beat ball and goalball, but more of that could only get more knowledge to blind athletes about our sport.
Right. And unfortunately, we've American society has gone a long way, since I graduated from high school in 1979, as far as making the handicap society more inclusive in things. But that is also, it hasn't always helped athletically, in that back into the 70s and 80s, the way that a lot of our people became involved in athletics for the blind was because a lot of them went to schools for the blind. Well, now, now not as many students go to blind schools or whatever, so therefore they're not given the opportunities that they had a long time ago. So we need to just need to reach out to different organizations to make sure that people know that we are a sport that's here for you to participate in. Whether it's beat baseball or goalball or golf or bowling. We just simply need to make sure people know that we're here.
All right. Any other hot spots on your platform?
Well, as most people who know me, there's things that I have been really involved in over the years, and those things, I've been chairman of the rules committee for a lot of years. I'm not currently chairman of that committee, but as something that I believe that we need to make sure that we keep our rules standardized and keep that moving forward. Seedings, we've had a lot of changes over the last few years as far as how we seed the the World Series going into the tournament. Something I've been deeply involved in, and I think that we do a much better job now than what we previously did, just simply taking the seedings from the previous year's World Series and seeding teams that way. So I think we've gone a long way that way. Vision requirements. I'm a member of the vision committee. I certainly believe that that's something that you can take a look at our bylaws and the purpose that's stated in our bylaws, what this sport is, who this sport is here for. And, you know, and I believe that we really need to make sure that, you know, we have players who are playing who qualify under those guidelines that are stipulated in our bylaws. And if that's something that people don't agree with, then we need to change our bylaws and make it, you know, so that we can reach out to people a wider range of visual impairment. But you know, unless that's done, we need to make sure that people are playing the game who are supposed to be playing the game.
How do you do that?
How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, what is the, you know, what's
the line, I guess, is.
Yeah, no, like you know, you're going to come in. Let's say you come in president, you know, next September. Like, what's your process? What are you putting forward to like kind of solve that issue? Because it has, you know, it does perplex people, right? People, you know, who appear to be fairly sighted actually playing the game, right? What's your approach to it? And again, you know, how does it, you know, take into account like this ever changing standard of what is blindness? You know, a long time ago, it was really only totally blind people who were really considered blind, right? It's not until the 1900s that you get the idea that legally blind is actually a thing, and people who can't see as well are actually blind. And over time, it seems like those standards have expanded and expanded. And it seems like what you're talking about here is running up against those expanding standards. And is it a principled thing with you where you like don't want those people with that type of vision to be actually in the game? Or is it just something that is simply, we just need to change the bylaws and the wording to expand it so everybody feels comfortable with what we're actually doing?
Well, those are very good questions. And the definition of visually impaired and legally blind has been pretty consistent since probably the 1940s, 1950s. You know, and whether it's visually impaired, legal blindness, or totally blind, and you know, visually impaired is defined as 20/70 in your best eye after correction, or total field vision of no more than 30 degrees, or legal blindness of 2200 in your best eye after correction, or no more than a certain amount of field vision, or totally blind, you know, just simply, yeah, not being able to see anything except for maybe hand movement. You know, my biggest thing is I want to make sure those people who can't compete in normal baseball, softball have the opportunity to compete in beat baseball.
I got to be honest, because this argument's been going on in our league for quite a while, and I have pretty much stayed out of it because I don't have any clue where the line is drawn, as far as who's like considered legally blind or who's considered eligible to play. Like I guess there's part of me that would think that would be fairly easy to determine, yet our league has never been able to agree on it. So
well, you're correct, and the reason why we haven't been able to agree upon it is because we've never enforced the standards that are specified in our bylaws, and you know,
Which are, just so we're all clear, what are those?
Visually impaired.
They are. I don't know.
Visually impaired is the maximum amount of sight that you can have to participate. And
So
visually impaired.
Is that the 20 2070 standard or the 2200 standard?
2070.
Okay.
2070 with 30 degrees of field.
And
2070 or 30.
We don't adhere to those standards. There are people in our league that see better than that.
There are, and that's why back a few years ago, we incorporated the grandfather clause to allow those people who had played the game, who didn't fulfill those requirements to continue to play.
Let me ask, as you guys seem to be more up to date on these numbers than I am, because you guys are talking gibberish to me. What are those numbers based on? Like who came up with those numbers? Is that some standard the NBBA set? Are we
they came around in the 1860s. It was just I believe it was a Swedish doctor. I should know his name off the top of my head, who came up with
Meatball.
What?
Meatball.
Yeah, but it's just the 20 feet, something that is 20 feet away to somebody with 2200 sight. That thing looks like it's 2200 feet away, right? So this guy came up with this sort of eye standard that he could then judge people's sight. It's right when they started to really start making eyeglasses on a large scale and stuff like that. But it's just so somebody with 2070, an object that is 20 feet away looks like it's 70 feet away. If you have 20/20 vision, something that is 20 feet away looks like it's 20 feet away.
That's
so it's kind of a subjective standard, right? It's a subjective standard on the.
And it is. It is.
Sure.
It is to some degree, but if you're going to have standards, you need to use something, and those are the standards that have been defined. Whether it's in sports organizations, whether it's the federal government, whether it's other international governments, and those are commonly held standards that are held worldwide, not just simply here in the United States.
So, I'm tripping that I had no idea our conversation was going to take us to the 1860s. I didn't realize that, that's where this argument kind of goes back to. That's interesting to me. But I guess just my final thought on it is that I think that if we are a league for blind athletes, we have to have a standard, but I'm not at all making a statement on what that standard should be. I don't know. I'm not intelligent enough to say what the standard should be, but can I assume then, Jerry, that that's going to be a goal of yours to find a standard for our league? If you were to be president?
But what I think he's saying is there's a standard already set.
That we're not following.
The standard is already there. And just to be clear, it's really the eye charts that came in the 1860s, and then they just decided what was good and what wasn't good based off that. But what he's saying is there's a standard set, and we don't follow it. And I think that the real question is, how are you then going to come in and enforce this? Either make people mad by making the hard decision that, hey, you guys are no longer going to be players.
The intent is not to make people mad.
But I mean, it is going, in the end, if it was easy, it would have already been done, right?
That's because until recently, we haven't enforced, having vision forms sent in and have those forms reviewed. And that's something that has started over the last couple of years. And it's something that will be, enforced this year. All players will have to recertify their vision, use a standard NBBA vision form that will be reviewed by people who work within the vision community to make sure that what's on those forms, meets what is the standard for visually impaired. And with those people submitting those forms, they're also, when they sign that form, part of the form says that, I'm giving NBBA the authority to reach out to my doctor to verify that this form was filled in by a licensed optometrist or ophthalmologist. Because a lot of people have simply gone to their, whether it's Lighthouse for the Blind or BOSMA or whoever, and had a form signed saying, yeah, well, he's visually impaired. Well, those people don't have the training to designate how well this person sees. And if the person has a form filled out and it's a visual problem that is permanent, there's no reason for the person to have these forms refilled every year. That's not necessary. Only for those people who have changing vision does the form have to be updated periodically. So this year will be one of the first years where we've actually reached out. We did it probably 15 years ago where we asked everybody to submit vision forms, but that wasn't on a standard NBBA form that you could easily take a look at and decide whether or not it met the qualifications. But Seth and Neil, you're right. I mean, it's a hard call. I mean, I don't want anybody to be excluded from our game who should be playing our game. But then again, I don't want people who should be playing our game to get excluded because there's people who could be capable of playing regular baseball or softball, but they're taking those places away from people who have no other forum to go back to as far as playing. So.
No, I hear you. And when I said make people mad, again, it's just, somebody who's been grandfathered in, at some point you're going to have to say your grandfather clause has run out. They're not going to be happy, but that's all I was, more saying. But I'm not saying it doesn't have to happen. I mean, it makes total sense as you lay it out. I was just saying that, it's a tough,
And I certainly don't want to see people not be involved in our game. I mean, we've got, whether it's 6 or 7 players playing, a game right now because of six regular spots plus a DH and a DF. I mean, take a look at the opportunity for other normally sighted people to be involved in our game. You got pitchers, you got catchers, you've got spotters, you've got coaches, you have volunteers. So there's plenty of opportunity for the normally sighted people to be involved in our game other than just simply playing the game.
I told you guys ahead of time, I'm kind of on a tight schedule, so I'm going to have to wrap this up pretty soon. But just on the getting people mad, like, honestly, if you're afraid to make people mad, you're not suited for leadership in the end, because beyond the vision thing, every decision that you push for is going to get support and it's going to get anger. So you know what I mean.
And the important thing there is, Neil, is I'm just, whether I become president or not, I'm just one person.
Right.
And yeah, I may have a bit of a pulpit to express my feelings on, but I'm just one person with one vote. And a lot of things that are done on the organizational level, as president, I don't even have a vote on,
Right.
So I'm just one person, and these are just things that, a few things that I feel that's important for our league to move forward on.
Fair.
And there's certainly a lot of other things, and I will, right at the moment I'm fighting detached retina, recovering from surgery, and I'm not very good at using screen readers and such, so I can't post a lot. So, but hopefully within the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to get back online, and I will. I'll post my bio on Facebook, on the different web pages that are available out there, whether it's Beatball Nation or Beatball Central, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that anybody might have as far as things that I'm interested in seeing the league move forward in, and certainly make those available for everybody to see.
Fair enough.
I mean, obviously, obviously there's a billion other things you want that I'm sure you have in mind when you picture yourself, becoming president or anything. But was there anything else you wanted us to hit before Neil has to run out the door, or was there anything else you wanted to mention, or that you wanted to get out on your platform in your big opening announcement time?
I guess I'll close with, I've been involved with the game for over 40 years. I've had the opportunity to serve in just about every capacity of the game that a person can participate in, whether it's playing, whether it's pitching, whether it's being a board member, whether it's coaching, whether it's just simply doing volunteer work within the organization. I think I have a well-rounded background in where we've been, and what we need to do to move forward. And our organization is no better than its membership. And if I were to be elected president, it's certainly the membership that I would be listening to and helping base my opinions on.
Excellent. Well, good luck to you, Jerry, man. It'll be interesting over the next 4 or 5 months, see how this all plays out, see who else jumps into it or whatever. But
Bam for president! Yay!
But man, I will say this. I know you're a good NBBA guy. I've been around you for over 30 years. I know you love the league. I know you're dedicated to it. So that's a good start for you, man.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on your show again. And please reach out if you have any questions.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Good luck to you, Jerry. Seth's disappointed that you're not here announcing that you're going to have a team called Jerry and the Atrics at the World Series next year, but all right, everybody. Go ahead, Jerry.
You guys are old men like I am, and you know how difficult that it is for Jerry and the geriatrics to
learning more and more all the time. All right, everybody.
Better you than us, man. Better you than us.
That's it for now. Got one more show before Thanksgiving, so we will catch you guys all next week. Thanks, Jerry, for joining us. Thank you, Seth Dog. Thank you, Frank Porter, for all your work, and we will see you all next time. Good night, Aunt Cindy.